Hello again, everyone. Derek Floyd here of Chasing the Impossible. Of course, we've got a great new guest to start off this segment, and someone that I really respect and admire in his work. We've got iLL Factor, the producer here on Chasing the Impossible. iLL, how are you, man?
Good, man. Hey, everybody. Pleasure to be here with you guys. So excited.
We're looking forward to hearing your story and how you can inspire us of people that watch Chasing the Impossible. And tell me a little bit about all the work that you've done, because you've spanned quite a bit of work over time.
Sure. I've been able to produce music for a living for the past 17 years now. And in the span of that time, I've been blessed to work on projects such as Yahu, Kelly Rowland, Sia, Gwen Stefani, Justin Timberlake, Jason Durelo,
wow,
Kygo, and been some share of scoring film, and recently doing a lot of video game stuff. I worked on the Assassin's Creed Syndicate project, The Crew, Just Dance, and a current audio branding for Ubisoft. So it's been an amazing wild ride and a lot of ups and downs, but man, it's been a blessing to be doing what I'm doing. So
wow, that's exciting. And for someone like yourself who's so successful, we're excited to hear how you found your impossible and what got you there, because we know, it's always a process. It's not just you wake up one day and you're successful. It takes a little bit of hard work and some determination, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the onset, when you're confronted with this dream or this admiration that you of wanting to pursue something, I think you're immediately bombarded with the overwhelming notion of, this just seems impossible. I just don't even know where to begin. Sure. And so a lot of that, and then sometimes you assume that that's the only place you're going to experience those impossible roadblocks, but they continue to show up in different forms and in different ways. And then your mindset changes throughout your time, and you look at things at a different angle to overcome those upcoming impossible hurdles or situations that hinder you down the road.
Sure. So what was your first, or what identified to you in your life as an impossible situation, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think most like a lot of people, I got into music because I had a passion for it. I loved music at a very young age. It moved me, and the sum of the average group of friends that I had around me, music moved me in a way to them. And I picked up the trombone, started learning at a young age.
Huh?
Yeah, man, that's the one that started it all. And I think I started playing when I was 6, and then that led into my middle school and high school years. And then I started dabbling into producing and DJing in my high school years. So here in Miami, which is where I'm based, I was just DJing at local events and underground raves and things like that. This is like 98, 99. And as I started to transition into like, okay, I want to do this for a living. I think everybody who has a passion for music starts heading in that direction of, how do I pursue this passion I have and build a career around that? How do I make a sustainable living off of that?
Sure. And
as soon as I was like, wide-eyed, dreamy about this, and like, I'm going to gung-ho and do it, here's where the impossible started to weigh in, and the burden of that was when people came alongside me, even close people, family members and people that I thought would help, build momentum. They just came alongside, you shouldn't be pursuing this. It's going to be a waste of time, and there's no real security in it. And so, the naysayers and all the haters out there. But, and I see where they're coming from, and it might have stemmed from a good place, but ultimately what it did, it just made the dream and the ambition I had just become impossible to reach. And it really just played that role of, all right, maybe I should. And for a while, I was just like, all right, well, I'll stop pursuing music. And I went to college, maybe the first 2 semesters for computer programming because it was safe. And then all the while, I'm like, man, I want to keep doing this music thing. And so I kept DJing, I kept producing music on the side, and I just kept linking up with other people. So I had the people on one side saying, and even family members, even someone like close, like at the beginning was my father, who really was like, you shouldn't, because he was a musician himself.
Oh, wow.
He had a taste of it, but then it went bitter for him. Ooh. And so he didn't want me to go through that experience as well. So I understand where he was coming from, but it just made this mountain much more bigger for me to climb. And I was like, well, all right, then I guess I just won't ever pursue it. And so they were like, don't do it. And then I had people that I saw doing it, and then I was like, but they're doing it, and so why don't I just come alongside them and ask them how is it that they're doing it? And so met with other guys in the same at the same level of the ladder that I was, and I was. It was such a huge, tremendous blessing that God would put me alongside veterans in the field, and I linked up with guys like George Noriega and Jimmy Douglas, who were legendary veterans in this, and they opened the door wide open and provided this access of mentorship, being able to not just like, hey, do this and this. It was like, let me bring you on my wing, and that was a huge key factor into this whole process, was being mentored, being guided, having someone. Because it's going to be, it is a rugged road to go on. There's a lot of, dues to be paid. There's a lot of hard work that goes in it. There's a lot of endless hours, a lot of things that go into it. And so I think when you contrast that to current climate right now, where people can have instant access to whatever they want with a click of a button,
sure,
it becomes, oh, well, if I have to put in work, or if I got to do that, if it doesn't come easy, then it's not meant to be. No, the reality is it is meant to be, because you develop to become the person you were meant to be for that position through the discipline and the hard work and the journey to get there.
Yeah.
That's great. So
that's great.
If that makes any sense.
That kind of positions back to what we talk about, chasing the impossible, where you identified and clarified that your impossible was you wanted to accomplish this music thing. You were going to do it. One of our other things we talk about is doing the homework. You did the homework. You found a mentor. You went and did you studied, you did websites, whatever. People think this is going to be falling to the sky, but it takes homework. It takes work for you to really get to that impossible thing. It's not just a easy thing.
No, absolutely. And that aspect of doing the homework is what I like to call being the hero of the day. So you have two options. You have the ability to know a lot, to Google everything, but then when you don't know, wisdom is applying the knowledge that you have.
Yes.
And there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge, right? So it's like, hey, I know that short key command to do that thing on Pro Tools, or I know how to do that on this plugin or something like that. And so there's two types of people that enter the studio in the studio environment. And when I would see them work with Jimmy or anybody else, there's that guy who knows the knowledge. He's like, oh, don't you know you could just do that and do that, do that? And nobody told them. They're speaking just out of like, oh, I'm going to impress them with my knowledge of this and that, and don't know and not apply wisdom and when to speak.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So they're like, oh, you should do this or you should do that. And like, see, I told you. And then the guy, Jimmy would quickly turn around and was like, I don't care. Like, who cares? And then wisdom is, looking around is like, the toilet paper is running low in the bathroom. Let me go fill it before somebody asks me to do it.
There you go.
That cable needs to be wounded. I got to go do that. Sure. And those are those moments where you start to doing the homework is finding a need and bringing value to the table and fulfilling that need.
Wow.
I didn't realize that to halfway of this journey, where at the earlier stages of my career, I started treating people as projects and not people. I would treat people as stepping stones to how can I use up this person to get to where I want to go, and that really just put me in a really bad place. It just put me in a bad position, because then I was also receiving that treatment on my end, and I didn't like it too.
Sure.
So when I started to realize the benefit of giving before receiving, or just giving and bringing value and finding a need and fulfilling that need, I really started seeing things turn around in a huge way. So the homework to me was, what's the need and how can I bring value, even though I am not going to get anything out of it?
Wow. Here, and I love that you said giving before receiving, and how that really takes precedence over how you live your daily life. If you're always looking to give and find a solution and find where to place what your value is, you'll always have a place where you are. I mean, it's like your value becomes always giving. I mean, such a great thing to think about. I hear you talk about you dug in, you did your homework, you work with mentors, but there was a time when I'm sure things weren't always good, and we try to tell people we're chasing the impossible that you're gonna have a place where you fall. Failure is part of the journey. Where was there a time where failure was part of it for you, and you learned so much from it?
I think that's the most I learned when I come alongside people and I help them take their next step with their music. It's not from the peaks that I teach them. It's from the valleys that I walk through that they learn the most from. It's from those moments that I actually get to share the most experience. It's because of the wrong decisions I made. It's because of the thing of treating people as projects. That mindset is what really hindered me. And so a couple of things were just, making decisions that were more based on the now instead of the long term, because of my desire to just instantly want to instantly be gratified. So, I would make decisions and be like, sure, I'll take that deal, and, I'll work on that track for X amount of money because I could really use that, and not really thinking of, or basing a relationship based on what I can get at the moment, as opposed to so I realized from that moment where now I'm like, hey, it's not really all about the upfront check. How can I build a long-lasting relationship with this other person involved? And that's what actually built a really healthy bridge between me and the video gaming publishing company, Ubisoft. And we've developed a great relationship together, in which now they're like, hey, we like working with you because you've got a good head on your shoulder, and we like the way you work, and you're doing some quality stuff. So out of that decision has led to almost like 5 games that I've been able to be a part of. Wow. in light of one decision of not trying to what I failed in the past were like, no, what's in it for me right now, and so not having a game plan for the long-term play. I think overall that's been a big part of my experience, and besides the failures of not being able to taking a lot of things personally, in the sense like, oh, my tracks weren't picked, or my songs weren't used for this, or my things weren't done, and took that personally, and it really just played, just kind of downcasted my spirit in the sense of things of like, well, I guess I'm just not good enough, and falling into that despair and not realizing, okay, so what? Keep moving. Yeah. Make another track, make another song, keep going at it. And so, but it took a while to kind of get into that
in
mindset.
Those times. We talk about, once you identify what your dream is, you're going to need the fuel. You're going to need the reason why. Because sometimes it's going to be tough. Sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes you're going to feel like, man, I shouldn't even do this anymore. There's got to be an internal reason deeper than, just I want to make money, I want to be somebody, but that keeps you going into that impossible. What do you think your internal reason is for digging so hard to make this happen?
Well, It has changed dramatically throughout the years of working. At first, the fuel was, hey, I want to make a living off of this. I want to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing absolutely wrong with that. But as the bank account grows, it just never becomes enough, and so you got to keep going, and you got to keep going, and then that guy's making more than you, and then I lost sight of a lot of things. I didn't prioritize certain relationships in my life that I thought they needed to be prioritized for the sake of reaching. I got to hit that specific goal. Another thing that fueled were some things like, hey, I want to make it to the Grammys. I want to be nominated. I want to go to the Grammys before I was like 24. And I did that. I was able to do that with the work I did on the Yahu album. And that was an amazing blessing. And then once I came from the Grammys, okay, now what? And then so the goal is always moving. It's always evolving. It's always changing. But I think now what's going on in the season of life that I'm in is that I'm seeing such a joy derived from being able to equip and coach and help others who were where I was at 17 years ago take their next step, because I'm getting such a huge joy and delight from that. Sure. That it's putting me in this position, and it plays a big role into why I've even created a platform like Beat Academy, which is a platform that I've created to do exactly that online, to help aspiring artists, musicians, producers, and songwriters to take their next step. Sure. And there's a joy that I'm getting from that. So that becomes the fuel. That becomes the bigger why as to why I'm doing this. Because then it no longer becomes a part of like, well, I'm working on this project because I want the big paycheck. Mm-hmm. And my worldview plays a big part of it too. And what I mean by that, my worldview is the moral compass in which I navigate through life. Mm-hmm. I grew up Catholic, but then throughout my years of producing music, I came to faith in Jesus, and that really played a big role into my relationship with God and my relationship with others. Sure. And how and so that helped change my paradigm, my mindset as to what really is important. Because at the end of the day, the bank accounts will close.
Yes, they will.
So if I'm thinking about, if I have an eternal mindset, like what can I do that will last forever? And that's nourishing the relationships that I have.
Wow.
And so that played a big role. Even in pursuing people in the music industry who didn't share the same worldview as I did, I can still nourish that relationship with them. I can still be a good giving person to them, and bring value to them, even though I'm not going to get anything in return. And that played a huge part. That was a big why behind a lot of my decision making. And people just started taking notice. They were like, "No, this is different."
Sure.
You know, like why are you going out of your way to do this? Like this doesn't make sense.
That's
I don't get it. Why would you do something like this? And it was like, well, because I want to share an opportunity with you to tell you how much I've been given and how much you've been given.
Sure.
So God has created us for this, and so it's provided that opportunity for that as well. And so that plays a big part in my everyday decision making.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the final thing we normally talk about is to try to teach people on the subscribers that going from your dream to the fuel to doing the homework to actually failing and getting back up, that it's all a process, and they have to trust the process and never give up. I'm sure that you felt over time this process has gotten crazy, but when did you feel like, okay, I just got to keep going, I'm going to make this happen, and you figured out, I got to trust this, I'm going to make it?
Every day. I mean, look, there's frustration. You know what really frustrated me a lot was when you're seeing other peers in the same industry. Now, this could be whether you're in the music industry, whether you're a plumber, or whether you're a dentist, an underwater basket weaver, because that's huge.
A lot of those.
You start to see others start to strive and do well, and then you start questioning. My stuff's even better. This is the immediate thought that I go to is like, I was a part of that process, or I was there with them in that process, or I'm we're in the same team or same firm or whatever, and they're blowing up, and I'm on the back burner. I don't get it. When I have other songwriters and peers that I've worked on, or artists that I develop, and they finally get the big break and they get the big $1 million publishing check, or they get all these things happening, I'm like, okay, like, what do I do with that? That frustration of okay, well, I can either just, that's it, nothing's gonna be worthwhile here, I might as well just hang up the towel, or I can be like, okay, let them. It's hard. I'm gonna be honest. It was hard. The pride in me was welling up to say, "Oh, that sucks. I don't want to be happy for them." So there was this understanding of like, okay, if I stay idle, everyone else will continue. The world will keep spinning. Just because I stop doesn't mean that everyone else who was behind me will also stop as well. And what I mean behind me is everybody who's hungry to eat that next meal or to get to that next step. They don't stop, so I got to keep going. Yeah. And that was the mentality. So, and I see it a lot, man. You could tell the people who are like, man, I'm hungry. I'm in it. And those now are the people that I want to be aligned with. Sure. Those are the people that I want to be partnered up with. Even in my Beat Academy platform, those are the artists and the people that I'm looking out for to be like, that person's hungry. Why? Sure. Because they're willing to apply the wisdom, and they're willing to speak and do the things at the right time. They're willing to give and be the hero of the day. They're willing to draw in the bigger why, the fuel as to what it is that they're doing. Sure. They're willing to put in the persistence, the endurance that's going to be required when they do fail. So that's that spark that you find. Not a lot of people have it. Sure. And that's fine. You could be the hobbyist, you could do that stuff, but just understand that there is that mindset that you start to see in a lot of people. The Jeff Bezos, the Steve Jobs, and all that stuff. There is that something, and I'm not going to say that we're all going to be a Steve Jobs. We might not, but we have a sphere of influence. Yes. We have a small group of like 2 or 3 people, and if we can just impact those 2 or 3 people. That's great, because a lot of people expect, man, I want to be the next Steve Jobs, and that's okay. That's great. Sure. You can introduce the new revolutionary thing to the world. Sure. But you can also revolutionize one person's life in a huge way. And I think that's on a micro level how it bleeds over to a macro level of being able to influence so many people. So
That's exciting. I mean, that kind of comes back to why we're doing Chasing the Impossible. I felt like God was giving me a cause to say, if you want to change the world, you change your circle of influence. You change your sphere, one person at a time. And I record people like yourself and send this out to say, hey, you can make a difference. You can change things. You can be someone that changes your sphere, and everybody spreads that positive forward. Then we start to see your communities change. We start to see people believing in themselves. We start to see things happening because one person said, you know what, I'm going to share my testimony. I'm going to share my story, so to speak, so that everyone else can learn. So, that's the point of Chasing the Impossible. So I'm really glad that you took the time to sit with us, man. I've always been a respecter of your work, admire what you do. And, I want to make sure that our subscribers know how to get a hold of you, how to follow you. Do you have your can you tell them where your social channels are so they can look at you?
Yeah, you can absolutely. And look, anybody,
and especially at Beat Academy, explain what that's all about so they can come and check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who's interested in pursuing a career in music, I've actually have a free gift for you for even watching our interview. I've got a ebook that I've put together with some 5 essentials that I've learned from those valleys that I walked through. Right, I share those 5 essentials for developing a successful career, and I have a gift for you. You can simply visit www.beatacademy.com/book.
Awesome.
And you can download that absolutely for free. So if you're watching this, it's an ebook I've put together. You can download that absolutely for free. And in the course of that, once you download that, I'll also stay in touch with you via emails, and I'll be sending you some emails of how you can take your next step forward and be a part of what I'm doing at Beat Academy.
That's awesome.
So that's a gift you guys can do as well.
What about Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those?
Yeah, at iLL Factor altogether. It's ILLFACTOR at iLL Factor at Twitter and Instagram, and YouTube. You can look up Beat Academy is our YouTube channel, and I have just content that's just coming out there and helping you with music production tips and things like that.
I'll try to have those names on the screen for you guys. All you guys that are watching, they should be edited by now. I'll put those on the screen so you guys can follow those. iLL Factor, thank you again for taking the time. Love your spirit, love your inspirational stories, love that you want to give back and that you really believe that everyone can chase their own impossible. And you've done yours, and you've made it. So just been a blessing talking to you.